Thank you for watching this video. I am going to do my best to distill what was a 40-minute webinar down into 10 to 15 minutes. I'm still going to start with this really great quote from Carl Jung. He's one of the four great modern psychologists of our time. He said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." And we could refer to it as subconscious, unconscious, whatever you want to imagine. If you think of our consciousness or our mental activity as a giant iceberg, then you could think of the unconscious or subconscious as that 95% of the iceberg that is below the waterline, and that waterline is our awareness. The reason why I bring this up when I'm talking about positive intelligence and when I'm talking about saboteurs is our saboteurs live down in our unconscious or subconscious mind, and we can start to identify them through raising our self-awareness, which you may have already done by taking the saboteur assessment. So I thank you if you have. If you haven't, then please take that as soon as you finish with this video. Let's look at the two characters in the world that we have inside of us. We have inside of us saboteurs. We have our inner Darth Vader. We also have a Yoda. We have a sage. That's our wisdom. And even if you didn't see these movies, you likely know that Yoda is the wise 400-year-old or however many year old thing that he is, and he is very much a responder. He doesn't react. He responds with empathy. He responds with curiosity. He responds with clear-headed action. Unlike Darth Vader, who reacts and often reacts with anger and guilt and shame and all kinds of negative emotions. So inside of us, we have both of these. And the whole point of the Positive Intelligence program is for us to stay in that sage, in that Yoda, more often than not. So that's really the essence of this program. One fact that I think is often surprising to people is to know what percentage of our 5,000 thoughts a day are negative. And that number, not to delay this, that number is greater than 70%. So only 30% or less are positive or neutral thoughts. And that really is part of the self-sabotaging that we do based upon the thinking that we have. Well, why is that? Well, from an evolutionary psychology perspective, our brain is a survival machine. It was set up to really do one thing, and that's to minimize energy in our body and also to keep us from getting attacked by lions, tigers, and bears. Oh my. However, we have this very ancient piece of hardware, and we also have an ancient operating system. So what positive intelligence is it's a new operating system for us to utilize so as not to let that survival brain run the show. What is mental fitness? So mental fitness is our ability to not let that survival brain run the show. You could think of it as your capacity to respond to life's challenges with positive or neutral rather than negative mindset. What's the impact? Well, you get peak performance, you get better relationships, you get peace of mind, healthy relationships, all of the above. Where does this come from? I did not create this. I wish I could say that I did. It's a fantastic program that was created by a gentleman named Shirzad Chamine. He wrote that book that you see there on the screen. He is an electrical engineer, a PhD in psychology, and has an MBA. The guy, boy, he really likes school. But what he did was he leveraged research from multiple fields such as neuroscience, positive psychology, cognitive behavioral psychology, and performance science to create this program. And let me, in the essence of time, let me move that along here. So it's got 4 components to it, and it's all based on research. So this isn't hand waving. This isn't I hope that this works. I have the white papers, I have the research papers that show that this does work. How does it work? What's the impact that it does? I will show you here. Here's some of the responses from 2,000 of the participants who took the program. So when they were initially setting up the program, they did this survey and they saw these, as I mentioned, boosting performance, improving well-being, strengthening relationships. You can see these numbers are very impressive, with the lowest number being 76% reported they were able to improve their ability to develop others. However, on the high side, 97% said that they improved their empathy. They 84% better at conflict management. You can imagine if you had all of these outcomes in your life, and if you were living a life like this, you would have a much, much better life. There's, there's the saboteur. There's also the judge. The judge is the most, let's say, universal saboteur. There's 10 saboteurs. There's the 9 accomplice saboteurs, and then there's the judge. The judge is the thoughts that show up when we see something and we say, I'm not good, they're not good, this circumstance isn't good. It's very much the instinctive response. When our amygdala gets activated, the judge steps in. And already you can see how if all you do is disidentify with your thoughts and say, okay, I am having judge thoughts right now, it starts to put you in the driver's seat. Now, you don't have all of the levers, but you are now in the driver's seat. Now, I'll tell you about the levers here in a little bit. So number one main character in self-sabotage is our judge. There's then 9 other saboteurs, and in the interest of time, I won't go through all of these, but you can see that they're built from really 2 different axes. There's what motivates us, and then what is our personal style. You can see that at the top and on your left. So our style and our motivation. As a result, there's 9 different characters that kind of fall out of that. And these characters were identified based on the research that Shirzad Chamine did. He looked out at all those areas of positive psychology, cognitive behavioral psychology, et cetera, and came up with these characters. And having given away hundreds of assessments over the years, I could tell you that when people read these, they're like, wow, I had no idea. So let's see here. Let's look at a theoretical. This is a hypothetical. Here's James. His number 1 is the controller. So I'm just going to talk about controller. I'm not going to talk in detail. However, many, just so you know, for example, executives, many of them do have a controller saboteur. And the reason why they do is that it has gotten them good results in the past. Now, controller, it starts to become negatively impacting when you experience certain negative emotions and feelings, and other people experience different negative emotions. And as I walk through, you'll see exactly what I mean. A controller is anxiety based. So a person who has a very strong controller saboteur is going to be a little bit anxious, especially when they're in situations where they don't feel they're in control. This is that whole volatile, uncertain, chaos, and ambiguity, right? VUCA, V-U-C-A, volatility, uncertainty, chaos, and ambiguity. Boy, in those situations, the executives or the leaders who have controller saboteurs, oh, wow, they're very anxious and they're very impatient. Well, of course, you get some strengths from it, and I won't go into detail, but you know that as a person who maybe is able to affect change in their organization, they're very confident, they're very action-oriented, etc. However, what are the thoughts and feelings? They may say, hey, I'm either in control or out of control. Nobody tells me what to do. They feel anxious when things aren't going their way. Then they're intimidating when others do not follow. And you can imagine what that does to others, especially you could think of, maybe you're familiar with Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And remember, there's that personal bank account. Everybody we're in relation with, we have a personal bank account. And when we have an interaction with them, especially if it's positive, it deposits in the personal bank account. Well, a controller, they're hitting that personal bank account, ATM, and making withdrawals more often. And as a result, people who are giving the controller the results that they want, they feel resentful. They feel they're really not able to tap into their greatest reserves. There's a cost. This is something we don't want to be in. You may say, well, pain is good, right, Steve? Isn't pain good for you? Only as a signal. So you can see here the hand on the hot stove. There's nothing on its face that is good about having your hand on a hot stove. However, yes, it serves as a signal and it tells you that you need to remove your hand from the hot stove. And that's what positive intelligence does, is it says, okay, we've gotten this negative emotion. I now am using it as a signal. Now, it's only helpful for really that 1 second as an alert. And when we stay in those negative emotions, it's hard for us to have clarity of thought. And it's hard for us to have empathy, curiosity, creativity, or laser-focused action. You can probably think of those times when you've been really, really stressed out. You can go into black and white thinking, right? It's either this or this, and for example. And so there goes the creativity, there goes the curiosity. Maybe you're very much into blaming the other person, so there's a lack of empathy. So yes, there's a whole bunch of negative emotions that can come up, but they're really just a signal. Well, that brings us to, as I mentioned, now that you're in the driver's seat, by understanding your saboteurs and being able to label them, catch them, all of that. Now, when you're in the driver's seat, well, there's some gears, and they are the sage perspective and the 5 sages. And in the interest of time, I won't go into great detail with them, but I will say this about the sage. This lives in the regions of the brain that have positive emotions, peace and calm, clear-headed focus, creativity, and the big picture view. This is a part of the brain that is not where our saboteurs lie. And that tells us that we can strengthen this part of the brain. So this program, that's one of the things that it does through mindfulness practices, sensory-based mindfulness practices. And when we go into those sensory-based mindfulness practices, we activate that part of the brain. Sage perspective is every outcome or circumstance can be turned into a gift or opportunity. And I'm not going to go too much into detail with that, but I think deep down you understand that sometimes, maybe like a day later, a couple of days later, you can look back on something and go, wow, you know what? That wasn't so bad. It ended up turning out to be a good thing. It ended up being a gift. Well, this program teaches you how to examine things that maybe in the past we would have thought of as a problem, and helps us shift it into a gift or opportunity. Well, which perspective is true, right? Do we want to stay in saboteur? We want to stay in sage? So saboteur says, hey, this is bad. Now, there's of course times when there's just plain facts, but we get to decide how we interpret those facts. What's that quote from Shakespeare? There is no good or bad, but thinking makes it so. Well, that's sage perspective from Mr. Shakespeare. Well, guess what? Whichever of these two you believe becomes true for you. I know that sounds a little bit delusional, but let's face it. Our thoughts are very, very powerful. They're very, very powerful in our life. And if we decide that we want to look at this as a gift or opportunity, then explore it with the 5 sages, then we can be much more happy and fulfilled and move into that clear-headed action in a way that we never could before. Well, how do we get into that space? How do we activate the part of the brain where the sage lives? And I'm going to tell you about a PQ rep. What is a PQ rep? PQ means positive intelligence quotient. PQ rep is the lifting or the workout that we can do. And here's one, very brief, 10-second. I'm going to use tactile. What that means is I'm just going to feel the ridges of my fingers. I'm going to focus so much that I can feel the ridges of my fingers. And as a result, as simple as this little exercise is, in the brain, I am now accessing the area where the sage lives. Now remember, we can only think one thought at a time. So if I come into this space, I'm thinking nothing but, oh wow, I can feel the ridges of my fingers because I've put such attention on my fingertips. So you just did a 10-second PQ rep. You just strengthened the part of your brain where the sage lives. Here's the simplicity of this operating system. As I mentioned, it is an operating system. Something happens and we feel some kind of negative emotions. We stop. We recognize we are in saboteur mode. You could disidentify with it by saying, I am having saboteur thoughts. You could label it. You say, I'm having controller thoughts. I'm having avoider thoughts. I am having judge thoughts. We do some PQ reps to quiet the saboteur. And we activate that part of the sage, or part of the brain where the sage lives. Then we assume the sage perspective. Then we generate the gift by using our sage powers like empathy, curiosity, creativity, and calm, clear-headed action. I know this sounds so simple, and I'm giving you the short version of it. So much more I could explain. If this sounds like something you might be interested in, then let's talk. Well, the question is it possible to really get that, to go from saboteur to sage, even in tough challenges? Of course. However, it depends upon the strength of your mental muscle, And we just did a little bit of a lift, but one can imagine if you do that mental lift, that PQ rep, you do many, many of those, you will activate that part of the brain where the sage lives and you will strengthen it. You may say, well, Steve, that sounds really great and all, but how do you know that to be true? Well, guess what? This program is research backed. They used functional MRI, functional magnetic resonance imaging, to see the parts of the brain that were strengthened as a result of this program. Well, why does that happen? Well, it's because this program's not about insight. It's only 20% insight, 80% mental muscle building. So you got to do the work. You get the results if you do the work. And it's very simple. It's all run through a very easy to use application, phone app. It's gamified. There's support. I'm your coach throughout the 6-week program, and I'll keep you on track. Well, it's a 6 to 8 week program, as I mentioned. 8 weeks is, it's 7 weeks. So it's between 6 and 8. It's 15 minutes a day. You can't defeat a gang of 10 bandits by sending one new fighter every single day. Instead, we need to send more fighters, right? If I got 10 bandits, I'm going to need to send a lot more fighters. Well, sending more fighters is analogous to doing more PQ reps every day. And if you do, you'll get the success that you're looking for. Here's the program overview. Like I said, I tried to hit 15 minutes. I'm at 17 minutes right now. 6-week duration. Watch one video a week. 15 minutes a day of practice. Read a little bit of the book. It's in a PDF and it's an audio book all through the app. Everything's in the app. It's great. I've had 15 groups come through so far. I'm about to start my 16th group as of this recording on the 27th of April, 2023. You can look through my recommendations. Many people recommend this. In the recommendations, you'll hear them you'll read them say Positive Intelligence Program or Stephen's program. This is at the core of it. Well, if you like what you hear, hey, reach out to me. Send me a text to that number, 512-553-2360. Text me your name and your email address. Go to positiveintelligence.com/assessment. Take the assessment. Send me your results. Grab time on my calendar. You can see the link above. I'll put that in the comments or have a way for you to get that from me. You could reach out to me on any number of different social media platforms or my email, which is up there, info@stephenenglish.net. That is all I have to say. Really, the last thing to say is that you are not alone, right? You will not be working this program alone. Not only will you have me as your coach, but you will have your pod mates. These are accountability partners. The groups range from 2 to 12 people. I've never gone more than 5. I like to keep it nice and small and intimate. If this sounds like something you're interested in, let me know. Love to help you out with this. I have seen the results, not just in myself, but in my clients. Tons of testimonials. And I know it works because like I said, I've lived it, and I can tell you with absolute certainty that there are no other programs like this on the market that really address what is at the core of what is keeping you from having a fulfilled, happy life. Well, with that, I'll end here. Hope you have a great day. Thank you so much for watching.